everyone. I just want to introduce myself real quick for some of the new people we have joining us today. My name is Caitlin. I'm the Director of Youth and Congregational Life at Grace. So today I'm going to go through the first reading we'll hear today. For those of you who are with me on Friday for our Sunday school lesson on Friday, you guys have the inside scoop on this, so this may be a little bit of a review, but then you're already in the know. You're smarter than everyone else already. It's pretty great. So, basically what we need to know before we hear this story, first we need to know who Samuel is. So Samuel, he is a prophet. That means that Samuel was basically the guy who was the interpreter kind of between God and the Israelites. So, yeah, he was the one that tried to make sure Israelites followed all the directions that God was giving them, that they were working on God's best interest and not necessarily their own. So that's Samuel's job. The next guy we hear about is Saul. So Saul at this point is the king of Israel. So Saul was this big, strong, powerful guy. He did a lot of good things for Israel, but at this point in the story, he got some directions from God and did not follow them at all. So he got in a lot of trouble with God. So this puts Samuel on a mission because God has decided that once Saul is done as king, God is going to pick a new king to come afterwards. So in this story that we're going to hear, Samuel gets sent on this mission to find the next king. He's told to go find Jesse, and one of Jesse's sons is going to be the person chosen. So he goes to Jesse, and he keeps going through his sons one by one, thinking, this one's surely got to be king, or that one's going to definitely be king. And God keeps saying, nope, none of them. And spoiler alert, it's David is the one that gets chosen. So, and we find out in the next story, that David's actually pretty young. He's really small. He's a lot weaker than some of his brothers. We do find out he's good looking, but anyways, but even with all of that, no one expects David to be the one to get picked. So, through that story, we actually find out there's a good little quote in the story about how just because Samuel thinks certain people should be king, it's not the same criteria that God looks at. God looks at what's on the inside and not necessarily what people think are best. So on Friday, we did this cool little art project. So what we did, we made little gingerbread people. And so what we did on the inside, we kind of ended up putting things that we're really good at, some skills we have, some things we like to do. An easier way to say that is we put all of our gifts on the inside. And then on the outside, we put some things that are kind of barriers to sharing those gifts. Some things that either other people have said to us that are hurtful, or some things society says that are not so great. So like things like we're too young, or I get told a lot that that's not a girl's job, that we should let the boys do it, and that's not cool. So basically what we did then is we took our gingerbread people and we took out all these outside things that other people like to say are important. But we know that just because other people say these things are important, God doesn't think they are important. What we learn in this story is that God cares about these gifts that we have. And we all have gifts, no matter how old, how young, no matter how tall, how short you are, whether you're a girl or a boy, we all have these gifts. Now, just because we have these gifts, are we perfect people? Nope. Because later in the story in the Bible, that's why we find out we need Jesus. Because we are still not always great people, but that's why Jesus is pretty cool. He makes up for all of our bad things. But back to the story. So, what we need to learn from what we hear about David is we need to share these gifts that we have, that God knows about, that we can share with the world. So we need to share these gifts, and we need to help other people find these gifts and share these gifts. And that's how we're going to make God happy is by encouraging others to share those gifts and sharing our own.